If your golf game feels off lately, don't blame your swing just yet. Your clubs might be working against you. I'm a certified club fitter and I see this far too often. People trying to fix a slice, a hook, distance gaps between their clubs when the real issue lies with their equipment. So in this video, I'm gonna be going over the top 3 reasons that your clubs might not be right for you and how to tell whether they're holding you back. So I'm not gonna waste any time here. We're gonna jump right in with number 1, and that's gonna be having improper lofts and lies of your clubs. So lie angle is basically a measurement of how upright or flat your club is when it sits flush on the ground. This is my 3-wood here, for example, and this is sitting flush on the ground. If I wanted to make it more upright, I would keep it flush on the ground and I would move it that way. If I wanted to make it more flat, I'd keep it flush on the ground and I'd move it that way. All you need to know as a player is that when we go flat, we're gonna open up the club face at impact more than likely, and the ball is gonna wanna go a little bit more right. Vice versa, if we go upright, that club's face is gonna wanna close at impact and we're gonna go a little bit left. Now, why this matters for so many amateurs out there is people have flat clubs or upright clubs without even knowing, and that's part of the reason or the whole reason that they're going left or going right. A good example would be somebody who struggles with a slice. I'm sure that's a miss that a lot of amateurs out there struggle with. A lot of them probably have flat clubs that are only making that slice worse, versus if they had upright clubs, it would actually want to help shift that slice a little bit back left. And this is a very general thing that I'm about to say, but if you struggle with left, I would want to make your clubs a little bit more flat. If you struggle with right, I would want to make your clubs a little bit more upright. That's not exactly true for everybody, but for the high majority of amateur golfers out there, that's going to be the rule of thumb. Now that's the lie angle portion of it, but the loft is equally as important. A lot of the time there are these weird distance gaps, or you're just not getting enough spin, or you're hitting them too far or too short. A lot of that, yes, it could be swing, but a lot of that could have to do with the actual loft of the club as well. Perfect example would be if you're a low spin player in general, and maybe you're not the greatest ball striker, you need a little bit of help with your ball striking, and maybe you're playing a little bit more forgiving iron, chances are that iron's lofts are jacked up. A 7-iron loft now is way stronger than it was 10 years ago. And that mostly comes from manufacturers wanting to be able to say that they make the longest irons in golf. I know Cobra, if you saw their irons, I think they're dark speed irons last year, I think the 7-iron was lofted at like 29 degrees, which is crazy low. That would be like a 5-iron maybe 10 years ago. And I get it, it works for them. They do go farther technically, but they don't go farther in an efficient way. So the chances are they're gonna spin way less and you're gonna hit a 7-iron farther than you ever have before, but your chances of holding the green are not as high. In a lot of my fittings, we end up weakening the loft, so when we order the irons, we order them with weaker lofts. I especially like to figure that out with cast irons, because with forged irons, if we really want to, we can bend the loft back a little bit, but with cast irons, once we order them, they kind of are how they are, so it's really important to get that figured out before you get your irons. And last note here about lofts and lies. If you've been playing off mats, or if you've been hitting off mats a lot, if it's the beginning of the season, or if it's just past the winter and you've been hitting off mats all winter, go get your lofts and lies checked. Chances are they're a little bit thrown off. Tip number 2 is going to be make sure you have the right grip and grip size. Now the actual style of grip, I don't care too much about. That's going to be all personal preference. The only style tip that I would give you is if you know you struggle more with face angle than club path, I would check out the Align grips from Golf Pride. That's how I was. I went to the Align grips because I knew I struggled with face angle a little bit, and I really feel that they've helped. But other than that, pick whatever style you want. That really doesn't make a difference. Size is what matters. Now, I know that big grips have become very popular. Obviously, Bryson plays them. And I know in a couple YouTube videos, John Daly talked about how every amateur golfer should have bigger grips. And not to talk back to John Daly, he's one of the greatest golfers of all time, but I would heavily disagree that more golfers need bigger grips. In fact, I would argue that less golfers should be playing bigger grips. Most right-handed amateurs out there struggle with a right miss more than a left miss. And then for lefties, they struggle a little bit more with left than right. When you go to a bigger grip, it actually makes it harder to turn that bottom hand over, which is what gets that club face back to square at impact. So most people are already struggling with a right miss, and going to a bigger grip is only making it harder to get that face back to square at impact. So chances are they're gonna shove everything a little bit more right. I've seen it on more than a few occasions in the shop I work at, where somebody will come in, they say, they used to play baseball or something, they want something that emulates a baseball grip, and they'll say, I want to go to jumbo grips, or I want to go to jumbo max grips. And we ask them, what's your miss? And they say, oh, well, it's a slice. We advise them not to do it. They put them on anyway, and they come back a month later and they say, yeah, you were right. And I'm not saying that grip size is the end all be all, but it's something to be aware of. And I'm not saying that nobody should go to big grips. If your miss is left, or your miss is turning that bottom hand over too quick, definitely go to big grips, or at least try them. So yeah, tip number 2 is gonna be all about grip and finding the right grip size for you. Tip number 3 is gonna be geared towards woods and drivers, and that's gonna be find out what shaft weight and flex you should be playing. A lot of the time, the driver head that you have is actually fine. It's the shaft that doesn't work for you. Actually, just today, I had a perfect example. A kid came in, he was swinging driver at 115-ish miles an hour. I don't think he knew that. He had a TSR2 with a hazardous black 60-gram regular shaft in the driver. That didn't work for him. He wondered why he was spinning it so much. He was spinning it at like 35, 4,000. And he was wondering why that was happening because the swing mechanics looked really, really good. He had a really good swing. All I actually had to do was change the flex of the shaft. I kept him in the exact same hazardous black, so the same shaft profile, but I made it extra stiff instead of regular. Took a few swings with it, still swinging at 115. The spin dropped to 22 to 2400, which was pretty ideal for him. And then the high spinny ones were at 2800 instead of 4000. And he started hitting these tight little draws right down the middle, 310, 315. And to find out what shaft you should be playing, all you really need to know is club speed and spin characteristics. So as a general breakdown for shaft guidelines with driver, if you swing 115 miles an hour or faster, you should be looking at TX, or you can start getting into the super extra stiff shafts. 105 to 115 is gonna be your regular extra stiffs. 95 to 105 is gonna be stiff. 85 to 95 is gonna be reg. And then down from there is gonna be senior, ladies, whatever you wanna go. And then you're gonna do your best to find out if you're a spinny or not so spinny player. Shafts are basically color coded nowadays. So if you are a high spin player and you need to lower that spin, lower that launch, you should be looking for a shaft that has the word black in the name. So think Ventus black, Denali black, Hazardous black, Tensei black, shafts like that. Those are pretty much all gonna be your low launch, low spin shafts to really hopefully bring that spin and bring that ballooniness down. There are a lot of options when it comes to mid launch, mid spin shafts. Think like Ventus blue or Denali blue. And then your high launch, high spin shafts. These are gonna be a little bit rarer. I would say most amateur golfers should be looking for low launch, low spin, but there are a few that need that higher launch, higher spin, and these are gonna be the red shafts. So Ventus red, Denali red, shafts like that. Also, shafts are gonna feel different based on the profile. A 60-gram extra stiff Ventus black is gonna feel way, way, way more stiff and telephone pole-like than a 60-gram Ventus red. So next time you go looking for a shaft, it's important to know all that so you get the best product for your game. So yeah, tip number 3 is gonna be find the right shaft for your swing. So before you go buy another training aid or change your whole swing, make sure your clubs aren't the real problem. A simple check, lie angle, grip size, shaft fit can change everything. Guys, I appreciate you sticking around. Like I said, I am a certified club fitter, so if you have any questions about any of this or just club fitting in general, drop them down below. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe and like button, and until next time, peace out.